Good afternoon, everyone. How are you doing today? Oh, that's good to hear. Happy Black History Month. I am Lakeisha Wade, and I am the manager of equity and inclusion. And as you can imagine, the last few weeks have been quite interesting for me to experience. However, I am encouraged because I have seen a steadfast commitment from our local government to maintain the course of ensuring that our communities embrace diversity, champion equity, promote inclusion, and foster belonging as a foundational principle of how we operate in the city of Frederick. Each year, we look forward to discovering meaningful ways that can have a positive impact on our community. And we've learned that there is no better way to engage than by truly listening and then doing. You echo the voice of not only sustained stability, but that of needed change within our communities. In an effort to stand with you, we're not only holding this space for you, for your voices to be heard, but also providing a platform for your organizations to be found. If you have a nonprofit, I invite you to please scan this QR code and fill out the form to be added to our online city database. This information will be displayed at the end of the year once we've collected responses from each part of our community through these types of nonprofit-focused events. Your voice will remain important for us, and getting that message out will remain important to us. Thank you again for all you do. We appreciate you. Without further ado, I'd like to invite to the stage Mayor Michael O'Connor.
Thank you, Lakeisha. Good evening. Welcome. Welcome to our acknowledgement and celebration of Black History Month. I am Michael O'Connor, the mayor of the city of Frederick, and I am delighted to welcome all of you to tonight's Black History Month Cultural Connection panel. For the city of Frederick, Black History Month is not just a time to reflect on the achievements and the struggles of the past. It is also a moment to honor and celebrate the ongoing efforts to promote equality and justice. It is a time to shine a spotlight on local trailblazers who inspire future generations to continue their legacy. I want to take a moment to emphasize our commitment to diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. At a time when some are questioning the future of these initiatives, I want to be clear. DEI is going nowhere in the city of Frederick. These initiatives are foundational to how we operate as a government and how we remain a community that is welcoming and inclusive to all voices. While DEI encompasses far more than race or ethnicity, it is crucial to recognize the leadership the Black community has played and continues to play in driving these efforts and shaping institutions that serve and uplift everyone. Our commitment to fostering a diverse and inclusive community is clear, and we are proud to continue our cultural celebrations. As we honor and celebrate Black History Month, we take immense pride in lifting Black voices and welcoming them to the table. Welcoming all voices to the table is how real work and real change happens. Together, we are building a community that values every individual and embraces the richness of our city's diversity. We'll continue to work towards a more equitable and inclusive Frederick, where everyone feels valued and heard. I'd like to acknowledge the Black History Month art exhibit on display at City Hall called Reflections of Resilience, celebrating Black voices in art. This exhibit is part of our In City Hall program and is curated this month by community leader Wendell Poindexter, featuring his pieces alongside work from other local Black artists, including Luce Merlin, Pierre Bowens, Taurine Washington, Ted Luck, and Yemi. Their work delves into personal and collective narratives that highlight resilience and the ongoing struggle for equality. This exhibit will be available at City Hall through March the 5th. I also want to shout out tonight's caterer, Sarah's Kitchen, for bringing a delicious spread for our guests. Through this year's cultural celebrations, we're thrilled to highlight the incredible work of nonprofits in our community. Tonight, we honor organizations who represent and support the Black community. Throughout history, nonprofits have played a vital role in advocating for justice, equality, and opportunity. Not only have Black-led nonprofits shaped our society, but they build a better tomorrow for all of us. And for that reason, I remain hopeful for our future. They are truly local heroes. To all the nonprofit leaders, frontline staff, administrative staff, or simply those who wear all those hats, thank you. Thank you. The work you do is extremely crucial to the well-being of our residents, and it creates a sense of community and belonging in Frederick. The service you provide fills essential gaps in vital services. As mayor, I'm committed to finding innovative ways that our city can support these invaluable efforts and ensure that the important work you do continues. One way the city proudly supports our beloved nonprofits is through our community promotions grants. And I see a few grantees here tonight in the audience and know that several are serving on tonight's panel. I hope that tonight's panel can provide education, clarity, understanding, hope, and healing. More importantly, I hope you walk out of here tonight knowing that the city of Frederick has your back. I encourage everyone to thoughtfully and openly engage in the discussions tonight as we learn from each other and work together to build a more inclusive and equitable future. Thank you for being here tonight and for your commitment to celebrating and advancing the principles of Black History Month. I also want to acknowledge the presence of City Council Vice President Derek Shackelford, County Council President Brad Young, and County Council Member Jerry Donald, who are joining us this evening as well. Without further ado, I'm honored to welcome tonight's panelists. We have Denise Rollins, the founder and executive director of Whole Heart Grief and Life Resource Center. Danielle Haskin is the government partner at the Black Equity Coalition. Phyllis York is the president and the founder at Empowering Community Leaders Network. Desiree Tucker, executive director at Women Solve. And Dayon McLaren Johnson, the interim executive director at I Believe in Me. Please have a seat. We're going to start out with an easy one for each of you, which is to, in about 2 minutes, try and provide just a brief overview of your nonprofit's purpose in our community. Denise, let's begin with you.
Thank you, Mayor, and everyone who is here. I am Dr. Denise Rollins, and the Whole Heart Grief and Life Resource Center was created to help people who are grieving both death and life, regardless of their ability to pay. Some of you in this moment, with all of the changes that are going on in this world, may be grieving that. And that's exactly what we were created to do. Through our paid services like coaching, workshops, and all of that, certifications, Our hope is that we have enough overflowing that for those people who cannot afford our services, we're able to pay for them without them feeling any different. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for the invitation, Mayor. Danielle Haskin with the Black Health Equity Coalition. Our goal is to eliminate health disparities in Frederick County and to help us impact our community's health. A lot of times we think about health care, but there's so much more that goes into our health. And so we have 11 pillars focusing on social justice, spiritual wellness, child and family health and wellness, really surrounding, and I want to read our mission statement that focuses on health and wellness. The mission of the Black Health Equity Coalition is to advance equity in Frederick County, Maryland, with the Black community by creating a safe and supportive space, both physical and virtual, for our people to thrive. We're committed to addressing determinants of health, the greatest of all, which is racism.
Good evening. Thank you for this opportunity, Mayor. I'm Phyllis York, and I am co-founder and executive director of Empowering Community Leaders Network, Incorporated, where we have a signature mentoring program in Frederick County for middle school girls. Our program goals are academic excellence, which includes field trips to college tours. And another goal of our program is cultural exposure, where we take the girls on to fancy restaurants where we've already taught about etiquette. And so the hands-on experience is what the field trips satisfy. Another goal of our program is health and fitness. We talk about, taking them to restaurants, and we bring in chefs to teach them how to prepare quick, healthy meals. Another goal is public speaking, and then the last one I will share is community outreach. It is very, very important for our girls to know, to give back, because they have been given a lot. And so that is a very important goal of our program. We meet every Wednesday at Thomas Johnson High School. The program is a 2-year program with 6th graders. So if a girl enters our program in 6th grade, well, they will be with us for 2 years. If they enter in 7th grade, 2 years. So it'll be 7th and 8th, 6th or 7th. And once they complete the 2-year program, there's a celebration. They earn a hoodie like this that I have on. And then they have the opportunity to apply to come back to our program as a mentor to their younger peers.
I think this is on. Can you hear me? Okay. All right. Thank you again for inviting me and having me, Mayor. My name is Desiree Tucker, and I am the Executive Director of Women Solve. Quite simply, Women Solve is an organization that brings together groups of women in our communities to focus on and solve community issues and problems. And we do that by forming committees, and those committees focus on single issues at a time. And I really, this organization formed because we really believe that women lift up our communities and women change the world. And there is so much power that we hold, and our voices are so important. And we want to give opportunity everywhere that we can to make an impact, and that's what we do by forming committees of women that come together to solve community issues. Very simple. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Dayon McLaurin Johnson. I am the interim executive director for I Believe in Me. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Lakeisha Ware. Thank you. And thank you to all my esteemed colleagues up here on the panel. I feel like I'm outnumbered. But very briefly, I Believe in Me, you're familiar, is dedicated to inspiring and challenging the young men in our community by providing them with the necessary tools, mentorship, resources to break generational cycles of struggle and to build positive, productive futures. Our organization supports young men primarily ages 6 to 16 in Frederick County through after-school and even summer initiatives that foster self-respect, resilience, and social-emotional learning, and we create a foundation for these young men to believe in themselves and to realize their full potential. Really excited to be here this afternoon.
I'm going to let you continue and tell us a little bit about what inspires and inspired you to get involved in this work. Dayon.
Okay. My mom was raised, well, I grew up in, I hate to say this, I grew up in Anne Arundel County. We grew up in a small community called Freetown. It was a predominantly African-American community. It was literally purchased by Civil War veterans, 4 African-American Civil War veterans that purchased a tract of land in Anne Arundel County, about 75 acres. So I grew up in a black community, and I saw my grandfather work tirelessly to get roads, to get running water, to build a school. Y'all can look it up, it's Freetown Elementary School. And my mom, who went to Bates High School, which is in Annapolis, where only African Americans, all the African Americans, if you wanted to get an education at that time, as you know, they all were bused to Bates High School in Annapolis. My mom graduated from Bates High School back in 1952. Then she went to Bowie State, where African American moms and women could only really pursue degrees in education. I grew up in that household. My dad also became known as the mayor of Freetown because he worked tirelessly with the politicians in Anne Arundel County to try to level the playing field. That's the household that I grew up in. And I bring that to wherever, whatever organization I'm a part of. It's the power of education, but it's also the power of being able to see a better future and a better hope for people, and for us to work collectively to make it happen. And that's what inspires me. As I just stated, I'm the interim executive director, so just briefly coming into this space and seeing all of the work that we can accomplish here is very, very rewarding, even already at this point.
You know, my organization is Women Solve, so obviously I'm very inspired by women and the strength that we carry. And I grew up in I'm also going to go back to how I grew up. I grew up in a family of very strong women. Tonight I happen to be here with my mother, Dorothy, and my Aunt Vivian. And my grandmother was also a very strong woman and the head of our family. And so certainly thinking about that has absolutely inspired what I do now, and how I believe so strongly, and our organization believes, that women change everything and make everything possible. And there's so much strength in that, and so much love and honor. And I'm proud to be a member of that sisterhood and legacy, absolutely. So I'm constantly inspired by the women that I grew up around, the women at this table, and lots of you in the audience as well that I recognize in the work that you do. And so that's what keeps me going. That's what inspires me to do what I do.
All right. I want to take a different angle here in describing my inspiration for doing the work that I do. So after 30 years of teaching elementary school students, middle school students, and then as a school administrator, where I observed teaching and learning, where I observed student behavior, and my particular burden was for the girls. And I started mentoring programs within the school, schools where middle schools where I work, also at the elementary level. And as I was retiring, thinking about, what's next, what's next for me? The message was very, very clear. Continue mentoring, but focus on the girls. Because I thought, I asked myself, I said, well, what is it that I can do? And let me back up. The reason why I say that is because I thought about the girls that I observed in classrooms. Some of them I knew were very sharp, top-notch students, but they were not involved in the school. They had not been invited to be involved in activities. And then, but they were just good students, right? And then on the other hand, there were those students who were in my office quite often. And so then my question was, what can I do, to bring positivity and motivate these young ladies on either side to be all that they can be? And thus, after retiring, found this Empowering Community Leaders Network and our SWAG, Sisters Wholesome Aspiring Toward Greatness mentoring program.
I think I'll take a little more recent approach also. Of course, coming from a home with a single Black father, raising a little girl was definitely not easy, so there's lots of stories that I could tell there. But I've moved here from Gaithersburg, and when I moved into Frederick, I just started going to meetings and getting involved, and I was welcomed with open arms by so many phenomenal people, many in this room and next to me. And I saw the power of community, and I saw people who were doing a lot with a little, and I really wanted to make those connections, understand how I could help and support. And so thinking back about churches, just being involved with service through church, through community organizations, and realizing that it does take a village, but at the same time, that village often was under-recognized and under-supported. Thinking about, hundreds of years of disenfranchisement when you look at funding and financing and opportunities. And so now as things get harder and harder and more strategic, I really wanted to pull together some of these powerhouses and use my education and knowledge and connections to understand how we can shift power, how we could amplify the resources that go to those organizations, because they're already doing all of the hard work, just wanting to be a support.
I think we are moved by either pain or passion. So for my journey, it was the pain that drove me to the work that I do. Having experienced my mother being killed by a drunk driver when I was 29. 10 years later, my 5-month-old died in a horrific accident that was an accident. 2 years after that, my aunt was killed by someone who was drag racing. And then 2 years after that, my first husband died, officially from sickle cell, but unofficially from, I believe it was grief. And what I realized is, especially in my community, that there's a lot of pain that is unaddressed, that we suck it up and we keep going, and we don't really address what's there at the core. And I heard everybody talk about these adverse childhood experiences, and I think it's beautiful that we heal our children. But what happens when you send healed children home to unhealed parents who have never really processed the pain that they've carried? And so I felt it was necessary for me to help people with grief. At first, I thought it was just from death, which I experienced. But as I was doing my dissertation, I realized that the pain from other grief was just as strong. From the divorce when my mom and dad were, when I was 8 years old and my mom and dad split up, from the expectations that I thought my life would be one way and it was another way. Even I believe the pain of diversity, when no matter what position I am put in, someone's going to look at me and think because I'm Black and I'm a woman, I've been given something that I worked my butt off to get. And so it was out of that pain that I created the Whole Heart Grief and Life Resource Center. And I am committed to making sure that all of us address our pain so that the next generation won't deal with what we had to deal with.
Thank you all so much. If we were to stop the conversation right there, just what you've said, I think, would be an inspiration to all of us. But we want to hear more, because the stories are really great. And I am just going to ask you, because we're getting a report that not everybody can hear, that you just not be afraid of the microphone and speaking up to make sure that everybody can hear the powerful words that you're saying this evening. if each of you could talk a little bit about what you consider some of the most important accomplishments, things that you've done to grow your organization, and the challenges that you face in doing this work. I think we'd like to hear that. Denise, do you want to go first?
All right, I'll speak up. I think one of the challenges I faced in growing my organization is not having the confidence in the organization that I should have had. I remember when I spoke to Marvin Arsham and he asked me why hadn't I ever applied for a grant with them. And I said it was tacked up to my window in my office, but I always felt like I wasn't good enough to put in. So it wasn't anybody keeping me from it. It was me feeling like I had to be better than in order to put in for it. So there were times when I held myself back. There's also systems that held me back, so I didn't do that for no reason. But I really, really wish I would have unleashed myself much earlier. And once I began pursuing those grants and making connections with other organizations and people and getting to know funders, the doors opened. It doesn't mean it's super easy, but it means it was easier than it used to be because I extended myself. And even for those funders who said no to me, I kept trying. And that's the best thing I've learned. Keep trying and put yourself out there.
I think some of the most important acts have been really just connecting a lot with the organizations. We have 11 pillars right now. We have 9 organizations. And while Black Health Equity Coalition is new, we have some giants in the room, definitely, with Asbury United Methodist Church that does so much in our community, working with Whole Heart and Women Solve, blackfrederick.com, really, again, to provide the resources and collaboration and strategically. And so I think that would be probably one of the most exciting achievements. We were one of 7 organizations in the nation to receive a CDC Foundation grant. And we applied for that grant with some reservation because individuals may have mentioned that I don't think this is really what they're looking for. I think they're looking for something that's more established, more foundation, a more established foundation. But we really believed in the power of what we were doing. And ultimately, somebody else did also. So I think that probably, I would say, our biggest achievement. The challenges I think we are facing, we're going to continue to face, is just really being intentional. And I often call on someone who I look up to, the former president of the American Public Health Association, Dr. Kamara Jones, that says, we want to be race explicit but not exclusive. And so when we look into the disenfranchisement and the disparities within multiple, individuals or groups, when we look at the sexual orientation and gender identity, when we look at gender inequalities, if you look down deeper, it's the individuals of color, it's the Black individuals that even then are experiencing the highest disparities. And so a big challenge is how do we communicate that? We don't want to be uninclusive, but we really want to be intentional about focusing in on the nuances that are needed in our community, because I believe what you said is when the Black community heals, everybody benefits, no doubt.
Some of the acts or accomplishments that we have experienced are due to the sense of community that's in our name. So empowering, then community, then leaders, then network. And so that's huge for us. And so some of those organizations with which we partner in our community are the Frederick County Public Schools. That was a huge accomplishment for us. We have an educational partnership with FCPS. And then another huge accomplishment for us, a partnership, is with the United States Army Medical Research and Development Command at Fort Detrick. And we have our girls are exposed to some of the brightest and best scientists in our country. And that partnership is huge. And then we have a partnership now with the United Way Run program, which is called Rides United Network. Another huge partnership. And then with the Chamber of Commerce, we are members of the Chamber of Commerce. However, we have a couple of our board members have participated in the Chamber's Leadership Frederick County program and the Leaders on Loan, where we have worked with nonprofit organizations in the community to make a difference. And then lastly, I'd like to mention an accomplishment for us is a relationship that we have with HOBE, the Hugh O'Brien Leadership Academy, and ECLN every year is able to send, well, we sponsor, I should say sponsor, 2 young ladies who have completed our program or who are now 10th graders, and so we sponsored them to attend that academy. Some of our challenges initially were setting up our organization, which was a huge challenge. But first, it was the research that had to be done. And, even with a great idea about, a mentoring program for middle school girls, so what? Does that already exist in Frederick County? And so we did research to determine, no, it did not exist. And so then we moved forward with, now what do we do? Start telling our story because we needed funding. And as Elizabeth Day of the Community Foundation so eloquently says, without any funding, there's no program. And so that was a huge tasking, for us. And so, 10 years later, here we are, we're still here.
I have been in Frederick County for 7 years now, and I have to say one of the things I find really unique and wonderful about being here is accessibility and being able to make an appointment to go and talk to Mayor O'Connor and to have his ear, or Dr. Shackelford. And that's something that I did when I first got here because I wanted to jump in and get involved. And that has been really helpful to not only learn more about this place that I now call home and have an organization, but also in helping form partnerships as well, which is so essential to the work that we do. And one of our greatest accomplishments as an organization is we're going into our 5th year of having a program at the Weinberg called Seed to Roots, where students from all over the county are invited to come and perform and share their art. And last year, it was our biggest event. We had 107 students from all over participate. And thanks to a grant from the City of Frederick and the Oshman Family Foundation, we were able to take students over the summer to New York City, to Broadway, to see The Wiz. And some of these students had never been out of Maryland before. And it was such a wonderful experience, and we were so honored to be able to do that. So that's an incredible accomplishment to have come from 5 years ago. We were in the pandemic. Kids were at home, inside, could not get out. And we got a group of women together who said, we want to do something about this. Our kids haven't been able to perform, have not been able to express themselves. And we partnered with the Weinberg and brought them in safely, 30 minutes at a time, gave them space up on that stage, and then we aired 3 nights of virtual programming, elementary, middle, and high school. And the next year, we were able to actually bring in a live audience, and now we're going into our 5th year. And the support for this program has been wonderful. So that certainly is a great accomplishment. Thank you.
You've plugged Seed to Roots, but you didn't tell us when and where.
Oh, absolutely. It is coming up on February 17th, once again at the Weinberg. It's always on President's Day because that's a holiday, so we rehearse on that Sunday and do a run-through, and then on Monday, President's Day holiday, we perform at 6 p.m. So showtime is at 6 p.m., and it's going to be a really wonderful program this year. So you can get your tickets, the Weinberg website. Tickets are $10, and children under 10 are free, and all of the proceeds from tickets go into scholarships for summer camps and for art lessons and for dance lessons. And so we're also very proud to be able to do that.
So to be fair to the rest of you, when the opportunity presents itself for you to plug something that you've got upcoming, I don't want you to miss that opportunity.
Plug it. Thank you.
Awesome. There are a couple of, IBM has been in existence since 2016. So we've had an impact on the community, Frederick community, for quite some time. A couple of things I'd love to point out is establishing really a mentorship culture at IBM. And y'all know that mentoring takes on many different forms. We have the traditional mentoring where you have older mentoring younger, but y'all are also familiar with the mentoring concept of reverse mentoring. Reverse mentoring is when a younger person instructs an older person. There's also group mentoring. There's also one-on-one mentoring. And what we've attempted to do is really create this culture where everyone has something to say, everyone is seen, and everyone is heard. And when we see these young men in that particular environment, it allows them to grow and to blossom and to be the men that they were created to be. The second thing that I would love to share is that we've recently received some additional funding from the state that has really allowed us to layer some more SEL programming, social emotional learning programming, into our programmatic calendar. So excited about having art therapy come in on a weekly basis, excited about having drum circles, which allow our young men to explore our 5 SEL pillars, which are resilience and emotional regulation and conflict resolution and respect and reflection. Those 5 R's are our SEL pillars, and we really are pushing to allow our young men to understand what it means to navigate in negative spaces and difficult spaces. And my peers on the panel have mentioned the word resilience multiple times. We know that we must raise resilient people in these difficult times. And so these are just a couple of things that are happening at I Believe in Me that I'm really, really excited and proud about.
So I'm going to let you wave a magic wand now and tell us about what relevant resources would be unlimited to your organization if we lived in a perfect world. Resources that might help you address some of those challenges that you talked about.
All right, I'll jump in. Whenever you're in a youth development, there's always money and mentors. Money and mentors. Can y'all say that with me? Money and mentors. So when we talk about unlimited resources, obviously we would love to have unlimited funds to do whatever we would like to do to support these young men. But you know, from a human capital perspective, human capital is critically important for all of us, and allowing these young men to see that there are people in the community that have their back is critical. And so having unlimited mentors come in to talk about their specific careers, to talk about their journeys, is something that we would love to have in an unlimited fashion. We've set a couple of goals that every young man that's in our program is going to be reading and math at grade level when they go into those transitional grades. So 5th grade and 8th grade, we want all of our young men in our program to be at math level and reading level. In order to do that, we have to have tutors to come in on a weekly basis to work with our young men, whether they're using our iExcel platform or the iReady platform, so they can excel academically. So if we were talking unlimited, I would love to have every one of you come over to our center and push in and provide some of the resources that we need from a human capital perspective. So that's what we're looking for from an organization.
Absolutely, money. That's you know, I am new to the nonprofit world, and it's a whole different beast than you know, having a private business or working in the corporate world. Lot of regulation, which is absolutely necessary, and you always need more money to do the good work that we're doing, and to, you know, be able to continue the programs that we start. So, you know, every year it's a challenge, and also I think you know, getting people to show up and getting the word out that you need support. So if it's a group of parents showing up at a board meeting, a school board meeting, then and getting the word out about that and collectively going. So that also can be a challenge at times, and would love to have everyone be able to corral and go marching in there and get what we want and what our kids need. So those would probably be my largest. Thank you.
Okay, so you said in a perfect world. So I'm a dreamer, and we have talked about this somewhat, during strategic planning, but not to the extent that I'm about to share. So in a perfect world, this is what we like to see. Funding, right, to cover swag franchising. We're in Frederick, but we would want to see our program franchised throughout the United States, starting in the state of Maryland. We said a perfect world where resources are unlimited, through the state of Maryland, and then throughout the United States, and then staffing. So then we need staffing to cover those, those franchises. Now, this is a dream, but it's not impossible. And then we need advocacy. We need folks to, our swag members who have graduated college, who are coming back and, looking for jobs. We want to see them working, supporting those franchises, advocating for the franchise of swag at the governor's office, for the different governors, right? And so they can serve on those committees and in those seats to advocate for programming for middle school girls throughout the country. That's what I'd like to see.
So listening, Black Health Equity Coalition wants to support our organizations and what they need, how they need it. So if I didn't say funding, I'd be missing a point here. So I would say funding. But in a way that's helpful. I think a lot of times there's so many restrictions to funding, and we want to do things at a population level. So I'm a public health, advocate, and a lot of times we want to change health outcomes one by one, individual by individual. We don't address the systems or transformational policies in a way where it's actually possible. So I think funding in a way that makes sense, that allows for the agency of the organization to do what they want, how they want, when they need it, because again, they're the experts, right? And I think access to professionals in those systems, understanding each individual piece and how our institutions have been built in a way, sometimes unintentionally, sometimes intentionally, to keep people out. So if we don't call in those things that were specifically put in place, how can we ever address it in a way that's going to impact for long term? And then the last thing I wrote was educational training and opportunities. But again, a lot of times it's during the day, during the work week, at a time where it's available but maybe not accessible. So providing those opportunities that really shift power to allow the individual or the organization to take advantage of those resources in the way that's best for them.
And I would say from the general public, I would ask funding as well. I think people often don't think about that $100, $200, $300 donation that you make can make a big difference. For my organization, that person who answers the phone when you call and you're hurting, that person has a salary, and the phone system has a cost, and the room that she's in, that costs something. And so if we can provide funding and give a donation, I believe in our generation we have more wealth than our ancestors had when they were released from slavery. We have more power than we know. And if we combine that power, can you imagine what can happen? So number one, funding. Number two, awareness. It starts with self-awareness. I have a mission to help people understand they're grieving when they don't know that they're grieving. When you do all the things you were told to do, I went to school, I got the degree, I had the 2.5 kids and a dog, but yet something is not the same. Something does not feel right. Sometimes that's a grief in the pit of my stomach, and I need somebody to help me through it and help me with it so I can be healthier for my sons and my daughters and my grandchildren. So that awareness is so very necessary. And then the other thing I would say is for those funders, most of us up here are small nonprofits. We don't have a full-time grant writer. So all those reports that you're asking for, all of the things that you require from us, you don't realize it takes the executive director all day to respond to that report. And that makes it hard for me to compete against a bigger organization because we just don't have the infrastructure. So in the ways that you can make it just a little bit easier for us to help people, because we're on the front lines helping people every single day, if you can make it easier for us, I guarantee you we will change this community with your help.
I think we would have been surprised if none of you had mentioned funding. So it's good that we put the obvious thing out there, but I think you also highlighted some of the other things. And I think your point about the reporting structure, on the government side, we're all about the accountability because that's the accountability out to the public. And I don't think we often think about the effect of, which is the right thing to be, how small organizations can provide that accountability in a way that makes sense to scale. You all formed with specific intent in terms of the work that you wanted to do. Through your interactions with others in the community, you've talked about this, some of you have used this word partnership already. Where have you identified areas where partnerships and what kind of partnerships would enhance the work that you do? Don't be shy. Anybody can jump in.
One thing that's been said, not only in Frederick County, but all across Maryland, is really creating a cradle-to-career continuum. And so this really is this partnership between multiple organizations, but also with FCPS, it's also with Frederick Community College. I think one thing that we're looking for really is this workforce development and this career preparation, making sure that even if our young men do not specifically want to go to a 2-year, 4-year school, they're given the tools necessary to be successful and to make a livable wage. And I think the partnerships that we create across the city and across the county are critical to make sure that that happens. So that cradle to career continuum, wherever your organization fits in, even if you're private sector, you're a critical player in this pool, because once our young men complete their 2-year or their 4-year or their technical degree, they need to find a job. And so it's critical that we have those partnerships and we have the communication amongst ourselves so that we know who's doing what in the ecosystem, so that we can leverage all of our resources and work together and to build the community that we can be.
So I think one of the unique things about our organization is that, people come to us with ideas and things and problems and issues that they want help addressing within their communities. And so we're constantly adjusting, changing, trying to solve and figure out how to help them move forward. And so, that's something I think is a little bit different. We are constantly faced with, how do we get started? Where do we start from? And, looking at timelines and exactly what partners we can bring in, so that changes for us all the time depending on whatever community issue it is that we're working on. So we're constantly being introduced, which is a great thing, because I get to meet lots of new people and introduce lots of organizations that I did not know existed, and that just expands our world and our circle, which we love.
With our SWAG program, Sisters, Wholesome, Aspiring Toward Greatness, partnerships in our local community are hugely important. And I mentioned that we have a formal educational partnership with Frederick County Public Schools already, and then the United States Army Medical Research and Development Command, where our girls are exposed to, just a plethora of scientists, specialists, active duty soldiers, to teach our STEM series in our program that we have every year. So that's hugely important, because then the young ladies get to see, that sounds very interesting. It looks exciting. Perhaps I can do that, because if she can do it, I can do it, right? And then with that partnership also, they can realize, that they realize that they can possibly get this education and become this scientist, this biologist, free. I mean, it's not free because taxpayers' dollars pay for it, but they're not having to, get a job, come out of their pocket, no stress over scholarships and that kind of thing, right? Through the U.S. Army. The other partnership that I mentioned is the Rise United Network with the United Way. We know about ALICE in our community. We know that, 33% of households in Frederick County fall within the ALICE category, access limited income constraints and employed. So we know that. And so we are very appreciative of that partnership because young ladies, we provide van transportation to pick them up from the various schools. However, some of them don't have transportation home, right? And so, and then the transportation through the run, that assistance also assists us with picking them up from school and providing those rides. So that is a tremendous partnership. And another partnership that we have is with the Frederick County Health Department. A couple of years ago, we partnered with the Frederick Health in an anti-drug and vaping campaign. And so we even included in our curriculum, activities and speakers to address that. And there's if you look at our Facebook page, there's still a commercial on our Facebook page about, anti-vaping. I'm not sure, I don't recall the exact title, but you can see that there. Another thing we do in terms of partnering with our communities in teaching the girls about giving back is they craft warm hats and scarves every year to give to local organizations such as Faith House and Religious Coalition. This year we added SHIP, and there's another organization. They made a total of 120 sets. Nice, beautiful, warm hats and scarves that we gave to those, donated to those organizations. Our girls we also have a relationship with the food bank in Frederick. This will be my last one. I can mention several more, but I don't want to take any more time. With the food bank at Walkersville. And so we take food over there, make donations, and then schedule times when our SWAG members can go there to help, organize the pantry, organize, the groceries there. We're getting ready to meet with the I promise this will be my last one. Okay, we're getting ready to meet with the Frederick County Division of Solid Waste and Recycling. Hugely important to our goal of health and fitness because we want to protect our environment. Everybody has to do their part, right, to protect our environment. And so they're going to work with our SWAG members and us to teach us, better ways of recycling, about solid waste and, all of that so that we can better protect our environment. So just a few of the partnerships that we have in Frederick that are essential to the success of the girls that we work with and to our program.
So I have to say, I'm blessed that my passion personally and professionally have merged. And so I think partnerships is essential. And looking at what Black Health Equity Coalition is about, it is about partnerships. I often am the one that says, we don't do programming. We're the one that amplifies the programs for our organizations. And so I think some gaps looking at would be, how can we maintain to be data-driven or data-focused but community-driven? And so looking potentially at research opportunities. A lot of times you hear evidence-based, which takes a lot of rigor, a lot of money, but there's also evidence-informed. And so things like when we look at Black maternal health, midwifery, and all of the research and knowledge we know that comes from, historical practices that are now, medical practices where you have to be a medical doctor and all the money that comes to do that. And so I think research, higher education institutions, we have partnerships, we have friends there, so we know there are opportunities, absolutely. And I think also speaking to what Dr. Rollins mentioned, partnerships with specialists, so grant writers and accountants. A lot of the nonprofit organizations, the smaller organizations, it'd be helpful to have one individual or a group of individuals that don't have to be hired, right, by the organizations, but that can be used to support and to amplify what they're already doing on loan, I guess, in a sense. That's another way we can amplify.
And I would just say that partnership is everything. I believe my life changed once I got exposed to the Osherman Family Foundation because of the connections that I was able to make with organizations like those seated at this table. And as we began to put our resources together, put our heads, our hearts, and our minds together, it changed everything. But I wanted to talk about a partnership that about a year ago, I was looking at social media, and I saw these committees and things in Frederick, and I was disheartened to not see a lot of African-American representation. So I put in for money with the city for what I called the North Star Leadership Initiative, naming it after the North Star, Frederick Douglass's newspaper, but also the star that led Harriet Tubman to lead the slaves out. And we created a program that has 12 up-and-coming African-American leaders in their 20s and 30s in this community. And the partnership with the city not only included the funding, but also the mayor's chief executive, Guyan, Sampson, Cavante Duckett, councilman is part of it. They're helping to lead it along with April Lee from Lee Building. And then people like Dr. Shackelford, he's a mentor to the folks in the program. The exposure that we're giving them, the opportunities, even next month, we will be taking them to Annapolis, and that's how we'll conclude the program. That preparation of our next generation is so powerful because I keep saying there's more than 8 Black people in Frederick. We need more than the same folks on every board. And if we can prepare that next generation and they can then open the door for somebody they know, can you imagine the representation, the voices that are at the table? So those partnerships are so very important, and I think we have to keep it going.
So we're up to our last structured question, and then we're going to open it up to some Q&A. So I want you to be thinking about, we did tell you there was going to be Q&A, didn't we? Be thinking about any questions that you might want to ask. As we wrap up here, how can members of the community celebrate and support your organizations throughout the year? And this is really your opportunity to sort of catch anything that you think you want to say that you haven't already said. Somebody jump in.
I will jump in. Sign up today. And I mean that. Sign up with us to become a volunteer, to make a donation. Where there's no funding, there is no program. No matter the size of the donation, we just had a 10 for 10 campaign, $10, $1 for every year that we've been in operation. And it was successful. So again, the smallest donation. Never feel that I can't give $100. It doesn't matter the size of your donation. We appreciate every donation that you give. So please keep that in mind. And I would say that applies to this entire panel. Like and follow us on social media, and attend our events. Our next event is on April 5th, and it will be held at the Spire Arts Library, and it is a Poets and Authors Seminar. That's on April 5th, and I think it's starting around noon, but that information will be posted on social media. And then our next event will take place on April 10th at the Frederick Community College Auditorium, the Small Auditorium, and that will be our swag showcase, our annual swag showcase, and this is the 4th annual. And tickets will be on sale for that at a nominal a nominal rate. So please, 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 all of that, everything that's raised in our fundraiser and our event supports our swag program. Thank you.
Once again, Seed to Roots is on February 17th, Monday, and tickets are on sale at the Weinberg website, or you can avoid all those fees and go in person to pick up your tickets. And again, this program invites children from all over the county, no matter where they come from, and giving them an opportunity, whether they are professionally trained or not, to really show the talent that they have. And they're absolutely phenomenal. It's a great night, and we always have a lot of fun and look forward to it. We also received a 2-year grant from the Osherman Family Foundation, and the program that we have developed is about microaggressions, and it is specifically for families and children to teach kids how to identify microaggressions early so that they not only recognize it when they see it, when they feel it, they don't internalize it, they understand how to respond and how to move forward with their heads held high and not holding that in. So that's a brand new program that we're developing. And we also have a grant through the health department. This is the 2nd year of that grant, called Get Fit Frederick. And again, that is for women and children, exposing them to a different way of thinking about fitness and diet. So it's not beating you over the head with cutting out everything that you love to eat and going to the gym. We did Pilates last year. Our first event coming up in March is going to be a fencing class. And so we're excited about that. And it's free, so you just have to sign up while we have space. And we're gonna have several of those events. So that's what's coming up, a couple of things that are coming up for us.
I Believe in Me does multiple things in our community. I'd love to highlight every Thursday night after our program, we have family dinner. And so many of these young men come from households where they aren't able to have a dinner with their family, and they sit down. And you guys know how important that is. And so every Thursday evening, we try to identify a Frederick vendor, a City of Frederick vendor, to provide a meal for our young men. And we sit down at our tables, and we say a word of blessing, and we eat our food together. So for 25 young men, that's an amazing opportunity for us to have community. Would love for any of you, if you're familiar with any vendors. We had a food truck come a couple of weeks ago, and it was just an amazing opportunity for our young men to experience that. You also are probably familiar with our 5K, which happens in August. Phenomenal, fun event that has become a Frederick staple. So if you don't want to worry about your diet or your fencing, or you can run in our 5K. The last thing that I would share in the right around the Christmas holiday, the holiday season, we also have Mingle All the Way. And so keep your eyes open for that. That will happen typically the 3rd Saturday in December. Would love to have your participation in our annual fundraiser. That's Mingle All the Way, and then our 5K. Thank you.
When grief is your middle name, most people think everything you do is depressing. And so I need to tell you that it's not. And so for the Whole Heart Center, the first Friday of every month, we have what's called Ladies' Night Out. Miss Rose Cheney can tell you about that, because she's every first Friday, she's there with bells on. This Friday, we're having our Galentine's celebration, and it's just a beautiful way to come together, celebrate, have a good time, and acknowledge who we are as people. So if you want to come out and have a good time, join us on Friday. It's always a blast.
And I'll wrap up and just repeat. So participate in the events engaging with the initiatives and spreading awareness if you're not able to join, volunteering your time and your skills, providing financial support at any amount, and then whatever that financial support may be in a way that they're allowed to use it and what's best for them. And then I think advocating, if nothing else. We are all in different rooms. Our voices speak to different people. And so at any opportunity where you're able to speak up or invite a Black-led organization into the room and say, I want to be on the agenda, but I'm not going to speak. I think that's very powerful.
Thank you all very much. Really appreciate all that you have provided to us this evening. It's been really fantastic and inspirational. Can we give our panel a round of applause? We have about 5 or so minutes for some Q&A. If you've got a question for anyone in particular, let us know. If it's for a general panel, let us know that too.
Test.
My name is Marcia Flowers, and I'm from the Frederick Deaf Community Center. Some of you may have heard of us. We're trying to build a center for the deaf community, which includes deaf, deaf and blind, deaf and handicapped, or even senior citizens, those who consider themselves hard of hearing, or they became deafened later in life. For a long time, we've been neglected and ignored. So we feel like, we need that support. And we really appreciate you all being role models for us, because we're going through the same thing, trying to find funding, begging, flirting, whatever we need to do, whatever it takes to get the money. We finally built it. We have our center. Thank you to Mayor O'Connor. And if you can know, the first time we met him, he told us there's powers in numbers, So if just one of us went, he might not think much of us. But if 10, 15 people go, then, power in numbers. So they said, you need to get one Maryland legislator or senator to become your best friend. And then they will go to Annapolis and fight for you. And that's what we need. We need to find somebody who can fight for us in Annapolis. Sorry, I know I have a time limit. We need to include Black deaf people. We don't have many in Frederick, even though Frederick has 50,000 deaf and hard of hearing people. We need to have more inclusivity of Black deaf community. Like my friend Bev just moved here from Silver Springs, and people keep asking her, why did you move here? And she said, well, most of my family's in Baltimore. Why would, there used to be KKK in the area of Frederick. And there's lots of different issues, looking for jobs. But we want to be able to support those too. It's nice to be here today and listen to you all so we can know where we can send our folks for support too. So then my question to you all, are all of your staff volunteer-based? Or do you only use the grant money for programs, like it's all or nothing for the programs? Or do you have a mixture of volunteers and paid staff? That's my question. Also, the Chamber of Commerce, thank you so much to them. They have been great friends to us. If y'all have questions, you should take advantage of that. They'll give you referrals to people who can answer the questions if they don't know the answers. Just thank you so much. You all did a wonderful job. Thank you for being here.
Can I just say something to that? That's diversity, equity, and inclusion. we have sold it as it's black people who are unqualified. No, diversity, equity, and inclusion is to make sure that people who aren't traditionally at the table are at the table. I continue to say I don't understand that why Frederick houses the Maryland School for the Deaf, but we don't have more programs that integrate our deaf community. And I know we have Kara in the back with the Downtown Frederick Partnership. When she was doing focus groups, she made sure she did a focus group specific to the deaf community to see how they felt. And she did have black participants in that, if you get a chance to talk to her, because we got to hear how scary it can be to be black and deaf when you're in a community that doesn't necessarily understand you. So I thank you for saying that, because I think we need more connections between our communities to help each other. Most of our money goes to programming, but we are learning now to ask for money for staffing, but most of it is programming.
Yeah, I can be quick. We're all volunteers, and on top of that, we support the organization. So the organization pillars or the executive directors usually have a full-time job, and then they're running the nonprofit volunteer-based also.
I will echo what Dr. Rollins just said. Most of our funding goes to programming. We do have volunteers as well. And I would love to have a young lady who's African American, deaf, coming to SWAG, and her interpreter coming right along with her. That would be just fabulous.
We also have a combination. We're mostly volunteers because our organization puts, again, groups together to focus on whatever has been brought to us and to solve those issues and work on solving those problems. And we use our grant funding for those programs. And sometimes we are able to build in salary support, personnel support.
And let me correct myself. It doesn't have to be African American, but that's what we were talking about. We were saying that they're not represented in the deaf at Maryland, but because we're open to all, right? So keep SWAG in mind.
Yeah, just echo what everyone else said. We have a combination of paid. We pay our drivers that go to the schools to pick up the young men, and then we also have some mentors, but we also have a cadre of volunteers.
To be respectful of everybody's time and to make sure that you have time to go out and eat that wonderful food that Sarah's Kitchen has prepared, we have time for one more question. I saw this hand go up, so go ahead, sir. The question, if I heard it correctly, to repeat it for anybody who's listening, is advice about some of the hardest challenges that people that you've worked with to overcome and to be successful. Is that a fair summary?
No, not quite.
Well, let me give you the microphone so that you can say it in exactly your words.
So the question was, if someone who you've inspired to do something themselves to add value to the community as you have, what advice would you give them to stay the course and to get off the ground and challenges they may face to do things like you're doing or greater, again, adding value to their own communities as well?
If I understand you correctly, I would love to echo what my colleague, I believe your name is Danielle. Yes, she said something very pointed in our conversation. She said there is a connection between your passion and your profession, right? And when I think I could probably speak for everybody at this table, all of us are passionate about what we're doing and what our hands are accomplishing. And it's hard work. And it's what keeps us motivated, even in the midst of negativity, even in the midst when our numbers don't meet where we think they should, even when the funding is low. There's something inside of each one of us that is drawing us to purpose and drawing us to destiny. And when you or anyone else in our community has passion about something, whether it's seeing our deaf brothers and sisters have a place to go, or whether it's seeing our young men at grade level, or our sisters, or our people that are experiencing grief, if you got something in your heart that's driving you, you'll be successful. You just need to find the people that will support you and cheer you on. That's why this work is amazing. Because, you know, my mom showed me what it means to go around and pick kids up to make sure that they had access. And now her passion has fueled me and all the people at this table. So that's the advice that I would give is like, bro, find your passion, whatever you're gifted to do, and just leverage it for the success of our community.
I will say that you keep pushing. And don't be afraid to push. I don't feel like there's anybody I can't get to. And also understand that someone has to be in charge, someone has to drive the bus. And that may end up being you at the end of the day. Even when you're scared. You know, someone has to be in control and to keep you on the path. And that may be you, so be okay with that. Yeah, get ready.
Would you like to hear more? I'll just say to tell your story to everyone that you meet, because that's what we did initially. I mean, we're just telling our story. And before we could even become incorporated, and out of town, Family Foundation gave us our very first grant, seed money. So, telling your story.
And if I could just add that you're worthy. I think a lot of times still thinking about, my dad always told me it doesn't matter who the person is, that they're an individual. And so being able, I think what Desiree mentioned is there's nobody that you can't reach out to and ask to. And I think Frederick is very unique in that way, that you do have access and can talk to individuals, and individuals that want to help and that just may not know how or how to connect. So your story, your passion, your purpose, you're worthy to continue to speak up and to show up, because through connections, and I mean, that's how we got on this stage today. Somebody knew about us. Just keep telling your story.
Denise, Danielle, Phyllis, Desiree, Dayon, thank you for being here this evening. And thank you to all of you for taking time out to help us kick off Black History Month with this Cultural Connection panel. I want to give a thanks to our panelists. I want to give a thanks to our staff, the City of Frederick, who helped to pull all of this together. Keep on the lookout for future cultural opportunities throughout the year as we celebrate everything that makes this community such a rich and wonderful place for so many people, and work every day to make it better. Thank you all so much. Have a wonderful evening.